Hello and welcome to Shutter Jams. In this episode, we will be talking to Will Newman about his up-and-coming album, Requiem to Who I Used to Be. This album and its creation has come from subject matter that some viewers might find difficult to watch or difficult to listen to. We will be touching on subjects such as suicide, drugs, drug abuse, depression and anxiety. So although we felt that it was important to share this story and how it's brought him back from that brink, we also understand that it might be difficult for some viewers and listeners to see. That being said, we hope you enjoy it, and please let us know if you have been affected by anything of this matter. And if you are going through it yourself, please talk to people, because there are people around that really do care. Love you lots, and hope you enjoy.
I never know how to start these things.
Well, we've been chatting for ages anyway.
Yeah. Well, thank you for coming and doing it.
It's all right.
Yeah, how you been?
Yeah, mate, not bad. Yeah.
But I don't need to jump straight into it. It was better.
In myself?
Yeah.
Yeah, much better, yeah. Much better this year compared to last year. Growing up, sorting your stuff out. Yeah, am I allowed to swear?
Yeah.
Sorting your shit out. Nothing vulgar. Just, yeah, much better now, sorting my shit out and making progress and making difficult changes one by one to get to where you want to be.
Yeah.
Or be in a more stable place, whatever it is, you know?
It was interesting. You said earlier on about 2018 being like a rough year. The last person we had in said the same thing, and to be honest, I kind of agreed with the same. It was, Christ, this is terrible. And then COVID came along, and then everything else. Yeah, I don't know. There's parallels between things. You kind of I don't know. I mean, do you mind me asking, what was it about that year?
Oh, yeah, we can get into all of it, mate. It's fine.
What was it that was...
I very much, I'm a heart on my sleeve person, so it's just, there's no problem. Well, I mean, it started a long time ago. In 2014, I went to university and I got really unwell and physically unwell and stomach stuff, and the doctors and things were saying, oh, well, you're just nervous, or you have IBS, or it's because you're away from uni. And I got iller and and lost about 3 stone, and, using the toilet, 20, 30 times a day, and eventually ended up in intensive care, in hospital on my own. So I was 18, 19 at this time. And I basically had ulceration in my intestines, and they'd missed a bacterial infection. So that left me with nerve damage, and for a few years they thought I had Crohn's disease and stuff.
Right.
And so my life, I'm 28 now, but my life started again in 2019. So I'm 23. That's how I feel. That's how I feel, because for those years I was very much subsisting, and I was using cycling and things to turn away from, any suggestion that would have been extremely traumatic to me mentally. It was no, this is a physical issue, oh no, it's just pain. And so that was a really restrictive time in my life where I didn't do anything. As I say, I was just existing, and life's happening around me, and I think 2018, it was one of these weird ones where I got everything to a better place where I felt this is sustainable. I was in the last year of my degree, and that was going well. And I did this big cycle race in Belgium. You ride before the pros go around and stuff. And nice. I had really severe stomach pain then while I was doing it, and a week later I had appendicitis. So I was in
Christ.
So I was in hospital, and that just the recovery from that was really difficult. You're just sort of, I think you might have you had appendicitis?
No, I haven't.
Oh,
No.
someone else. You're just like sitting down for like 2-3 months. You can't stand up. Like you're just like, you know, and it just set my pain to like entirely new levels. Completely socially isolated. Couldn't go out, and that was like.
So is it all connected? Is it
I
like?
mean, yeah, that's probably, and so I got nerve damage from that as well. And so, like at this point, I wasn't even like taking painkillers or anything. Like there was just like I was just so. I feel like over that time, I've been like mentally tortured by pain. That's how it feels, you know, like mentally. And it was just at that point where it was just like bang, like all the things you were doing, especially cycling, to get away from the mental side of it. You know, have gone away, and that was really the first time I sort of contemplated, well, there's something mentally going on here.
Okay.
And like, oh, I do have anxiety, or I am depressed. Like, oh, there actually has been a huge mental toll on that for me, and I hadn't dealt with it.
Yeah.
I was a young kid, and like my parents and stuff, and my family, like the people around me, they had anticipated it and they'd spoken to me about it, but I don't think anywhere near like they had the awareness of like how bad it was, or like how bad that would affect someone, you know. And so it was just that time of social isolation. That was the point where I got like depressed, and well, I mean, I've been depressed for a long time at that point that I hadn't realized, but that was a time when I felt suicidal.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like really serious at that time. I thought it was, you know. And it's like, it's this whole thing about rock bottom is like, oh, I've hit it, and then it's like, oh no, you can slide down, you know. And that's what led to this album. But yeah, it was just at that time, like that's when I really got in touch with, oh, I'm in a really bad place. And that's what I mean when I say like 2018 was a really bad time. And that's when I started like actually, oh, I have no money and I don't have a job, and like I've just finished my degree, I'm just about to start my master's, and oh, like I am going to go to therapy, and I go to counselling, and I'm like, oh, fucking hell, like this is the Matterhorn. Like there's so much shit here that I've just, I mean, even to the point where like some of my physical health issues were from mental health issues, you know, and I hadn't even begun
Really?
to, yeah, you know, like, you know how like anxiety can affect your body, like, even just on a basic level, like, oh, I've got an exam, I need a shit, like, you know, or like, just that on a basic level, but like, I don't know, like,
exacerbated.
massively, like, if you're anxious, people feel like heartburn, or they feel like, oh, I've got this pain in my chest, or I've got this like lump in my throat, all these things. It was just the Matterhorn, and it was like, how do you even begin to start scaling this enormous thing? Like, because it wasn't just like going to uni and what happened there. It was the years after that as well. And I think in realizing that you've got something so big to start climbing, that in itself is just so overwhelming, where you're like, can I even start?
Yeah.
You know? So that was 2018. Like, that was... That's kind of like, you know, you said the parallels. That was the first time there was like, oh, like a really bad point where I'd even acknowledged that.
That is. So how did the album then come out of it? Was it like kind of something you could control, or something it was it an outlet? Was it like...
Oh, for this time, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna sound like I'm gonna sound so messed up by the end of this.
No.
But the thing is like I say to people, and like people said to me, is like I am aggressively normal.
Yeah.
If you think about it, like as you know me, like for all the things that I've told you, it's like you can't tell. Like I am just a very normal guy. It's not like I does these kooky things. He's weird, you know.
Yeah.
But I think that puts you really down to earth, actually.
Yeah.
Like once you've been like, because we were talking about being atheist agnostic or whatever, once you've been like bitch slapped by the universe a couple of times and you actually know what like reality is like, you know, I really ground you as a person.
Yeah.
I'm very cynical, like understandably, but yeah, I think it puts you in contact with like what matters and what's real and stuff. But my sort of like journey started then, because I'd already been playing guitar since I was like 10.
Yeah.
And because my mum would take us to Tesco or whatever, and she'd play like Nevermind by Nirvana, and I'd be like, what's this?
Yeah. So was that when you kind of got into music in the first place?
Yeah, when I was 10, like that's when I was like, can I have a guitar? And
Yeah.
I've just got this mind where it doesn't matter how difficult something is, I'm just going to keep doing it. Like, you'll shit a guitar for 3 years and then you're like, oh, I sound all right now. Like,
Yeah.
you just have to struggle through it. And a lot of people don't get past that first couple of weeks or months because it's really difficult
Yeah,
like, to
and
even
like it
start.
hurt, but
It hurts.
yeah, it does.
Yeah.
To begin with, it like, yeah, you shouldn't be holding down a bit of wire on a bit of wood. Like, I don't think cavemen would have.
No.
I don't know, but yeah.
No, even just that. And like, so that's when it started. But in 2018, I was like, if I've stared death in the face metaphorically, physically, and then mentally now, like, why do I care? Because I'd never produced music or wanted to sing live even because I was like afraid of my voice.
Okay.
Like I just like a self-conscious thing. Like people were like, oh, I don't like the way I look, or I don't like this bit about my hips or whatever. And it was just like, oh, like, I don't really know if I've got a good voice. Like, it sounds nice if I listen to music and I sing along and all this. Like, you just have to, you know this, you just have to take a bit of a dive with it.
It is a bit of a, and like I'm getting married next month, and
Congratulations.
I've written my wedding song.
Oh, wow.
Because my other half was like, I want to write it, and I'd said, okay, well, as long as you can sing a part on it as well. So she came up last night to sing her part on it, and I think she kind of realised then how terrifying it is, and it was like listening back. And I said, what you need to take into consideration is that you're not going to like your voice, whether it sounds good or not. I earn quite a lot of money out of recording songs for other people, singing on them, and sending it back. I still don't particularly like my voice.
You're like, oh, that take's not good.
Yeah, or because you're overcritical of yourself. Like, I suppose it's a good thing, but
Oh, it can be, but it can be a limitation.
I
That's why
think
people
it
never
is.
release anything.
Yeah.
Oh, it's not perfect. It's never fucking perfect.
No.
It's a snapshot in time. It really is. Like,
Yeah.
you can do this forever. You can keep going and going and going. It will never be the right time.
Yeah,
You know?
and that's kind of how all of this has been born as well. Because I was like, well, is it going to be a massive flop? I just thought, well, if I don't do it and don't give it a go, I'm always just going to think, well, what if? And I would rather do it and fail, and go, okay, yeah, but it didn't work. Let's try it again in 5 years' time or whatever. Because this stuff, like, I'm similar. I'm just never going to give up. I think musicians are quite stubborn people a lot of the time. But yeah, just I can't remember what the point I was going to make was.
Well, no, you're saying about like trying it and like when you're recording vocals and stuff, like doing a take and it's never going to be perfect.
Yeah, and it's not, and you can sit and sort of worry over it and do it over and over and over again. But like you were saying earlier on, at some point you have to kind of just stop thinking, well, what is everybody else going to think of this? Do I like it? There was somebody I watched on Instagram a little while ago that was like, if you're doing creative things, and I know this is coming into the agnostic thing as well, you're making an offering to God. And I mean, you don't have to think about it as God,
the universe.
but you're making an offering.
You're offering something up. Yeah.
And as long as it's to the best of your ability and that you like it, offer it out. There's bound to be people that go, that's rubbish. But there'll be a lot of people that will love it. And I don't think I really realised until I started, like, I've only released sort of 2-3 tracks and I want to get back into it. But there's a bloke that I know who has it on every day.
Yeah, I know. It's
And he's
weird.
like 19.
Yeah.
I'm like, do you like? I thought he was just taking a piss the first couple of times. He was like, I love it. I really, really like it.
Yeah.
And all I hear are the imperfections. I think that could have been better. That could have been better.
Oh, especially when you look back in time.
Yeah.
Just like 3 years ago.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, I'm so much better now singing. Or I wouldn't have done it that way. You know?
Yeah.
But that's the whole point. It's a picture.
Yeah. And actually, speaking of a couple of years, I mean, I think you were one of the first people I filmed. When was that?
That was 2019.
That was 2019.
Yeah.
Oh, so that was after. That was after the initial bottom.
Yeah, that was when I was like, oh, fuck it, I'm just gonna sing and produce music. Like, what's the point? I'm gonna go to an open mic, like, and do it. And my friend pushed me to do that, and I'm very grateful for that. You know, he pushed me to be like, just sing,
Yeah,
just try it. and I did it, and I was like, well, that wasn't really that bad. Like,
The reviews are amazing as well, aren't they? Like I think one of the things I find that I think that you're quite good at is the marketing and the you always seem to have things in the right places, and like there's always reviews, or maybe it's just that you're good at the market, that like pushing it out there. But yeah, like your reviews are good. The music is good actually, and you seem to have like quite a loyal fan base. Although maybe not in the as much in the UK. Didn't you say something about Germany a few years ago?
yeah, well, I have like a small label in Germany that distribute my music, which is
okay.
great. But then, like you said, it's like I remember when my first album came out, and someone from like Manila bought it, and it's like, for them, it's like, you know, 50 quid or whatever. Like,
Where's Manila?
if you convert in the Philippines,
Oh, okay.
and you're just like, it's the same thing you're saying with that kid. You're just like, whoa, like it makes me feel woozy, and like I don't really see that money because it, you know, when you get the royalties and things, it's
Oh yeah.
for us it's not a lot of money, but for them it is, and I'm just like, it's just a weird one. Like I sent a signed poster to someone in India. Like these are all just bizarre things because I've never gone to these places and I don't know these people. And when you're writing about, if it's like rock and roll, yeah, and talking about the West, it's like, of course it's cool.
Yeah.
But when you're like, because I am literally like balls on the table, this is what happened, and people were listening to it.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I said it's so much more naked than just any nude. You could show a nude you could get naked in front of stage, in front of people, and compared to some of the things that I've written and put out into the world, it's like it's just bare bones honest. But yeah, no, like with the marketing and stuff, I just I'm always just like, well, this song's coming out, so I'm going to get this done. I'm going to submit it to these curators. I'm going to get these promo videos done. I love doing the artwork. Like, I really enjoy that. That's another creative thing. How, and I explain to people who don't play music, like, how can I paint, or how can I like draw this sonic thing, which in itself is intangible and is almost given to you in your head, like, you're on the toilet and you're like, like the thing comes into your head and you're like, oh, and I've got all these like voice recordings of me going, and like it just comes in, you know, it's beamed into your head and you just like accept it in some way, and then you're like, oh, I've got to make a physical manifestation of that and things. No, it all started in 2019 is when I started like singing in Canterbury, and I'd already been like messing around with like, I mean, like learning how to use like a digital workspace and stuff. I mean, that's a skill. Like, it's difficult. Like when you first start it, because I didn't have GarageBand or anything. I've got I've got FL Studio. I've got Fruity Loop Studio.
Right. Nobody calls it Fruity Loops anymore, do they? Everyone's, oh yeah, I've got FL Studio. I'm like, you're using Fruity Loops, mate.
Yeah,
but it's good.
It took me a long time to like just learn it, and just like this is the recording equipment you need, and this is the, you know, and like you do it and it sucks, and the whole process is, I'm going to put this thing out and it's half baked and it's not quite ready, but every single time it's going to get better. It's sonically going to get better. The writing's going to get better. The production's going to get better, until you get to a point where you're like, oh, I can't stop listening to that song. Like, oh, I'm so psyched. Like, every time I get a master back and it's finished, I'm just like, I want to listen to it and I want to share it to the people, and like, I've got to wait like 6 weeks until it's out. Like, what? I just want to listen to it now, and like so excited because it's a manifestation of the thing you've been working on for such a long time. And when it finally sounds like just like what you wanted, you know, that's just like a really special thing. It's an encapsulation.
So do you produce it all yourself then?
I know
you send it off to master.
Yeah.
So is all the sort of instrumentation, because it's got a real kind of, although they're quite different, a lot of the tracks. I basically, like this week, just listened to quite a lot of the back catalogue. Crazy came on this morning. I really like. Well, I like the one thing that. Sorry, my mind flicks around.
That's all right.
One thing I particularly liked was the artwork on Spotify, and how everything just makes basically everything you're doing just screams professionalism. It's really well put together.
Thank you.
This, like, the sound is very, it's got a kind of 80s disco feel to it. Disco is probably the wrong word.
No,
but
it does.
like
There's
that,
elements of everything in
but
it,
it's
isn't
got that kind of like a dance element, but more chilled out and more kind of easier to listen to be honest. So do you do all of that yourself? Is that your
Yeah, literally everything. All the instrumentation is me.
all on FL Studio?
Yeah, like
Brilliant.
so. Like sometimes I use bass plugins, but yeah, like obviously all the guitars me, the piano I play. I've got drum pads, but I've also got a drum plugin,
Yeah.
samples and things. I'm trying to think what else. Obviously, like synths and things. I've got really cheap ones. So yeah, that's all me. Like I try and keep it that way. And even if I'm using like a drum plugin, I write every single.
Yeah. You're still programming it yourself.
Yeah, and I write every single like drum loop and like customize it and like actually like I'm going to use this crash and like because I've got addictive drums and it's really really good for that and I want to use this tone like or even just down to like that's really expansive. It's almost like having the control in the drum room because it's like a lot of the stuff on this album. I really like I love the Nevermind roomy drum sound. I love a roomy drum sound. Like it just sounds so nice. But yeah, so all of that is done myself. And I had an old producer before, but I started working with this producer, Will Davies. He's got his own little studio down in Winchester. Okay. And we do it all remotely. But I basically just mix it, and I get a mix that like you wouldn't sniff out the mix if I sent it to you. It's just like getting someone else to check it over sonically, having that synergy of like I like some of the stuff he did, and I liked some of the music he worked on before, and just like I had an old producer Chris, and that he did the Daylight Fades to Midnight, so he did like Crazy and all those tracks.
Yeah,
and it was like let's break away from that. With this new album, it's very much like, because it's got all these other influences where it's actually gone back a bit more to almost like pure guitar and drums and sounds like there's a band and stuff and like the neo soul and the John Mayer and all this stuff and the Tom Misch and like, I mean, there's a mix in there, but yeah, let's work with someone else and let's see how we get together like sonically. And it's just like to check it over. I mean, like I could learn to do it all, but I think there's
you're working on other people's experiences as well, aren't you? And I do the same. My business partner Steph. We bounce everything off of one another, and I think that's quite important. Even if you're a solo artist, I don't think because it's nice even just for somebody to go, yeah, that's good, yeah, and just to okay, cool, like. Reaffirming that belief in the thing that you put into in the first place, because it's so difficult to like. I mean, I'm quite an indecisive person anyway, so when I'm writing things, I'm like, well, is that the right lyric, and is that the right thing there? And what I don't ever take into consideration is that the consumer a lot of the time doesn't care about any of that because they hear the track and they hear that's the way it was written, that is the track. And they don't hear all of the possible deviations that could come from it. And actually, even myself, like I know how to do it all, but I'll listen to a track and I don't think I ever think, that there's the odd time where I think, man, I probably wouldn't have used that line. But
yeah,
you listen to the thing as a whole and go, that's good. But you don't have that in the writing process.
No,
I don't think.
Well, there's so much you can do in production. Like in writing, you're like, you could finish a line with a word like 2 seconds early before it goes into a chorus and you sing it, and when you send over the like, oh, and by the way, like, you know, to people who don't write music, you know, if you think like a dick pic is anywhere near naked, send a raw vocal track, send a dry vocal track. There's nothing fucking scarier than that. You know that.
Yeah, when you haven't tuned it.
No, you know
done anything to it.
You know that, but no, like you can have in writing, you could finish the line with a word and it hangs there awkwardly. And in production, it's like there's an echo and it, like it pitches out and it reverbs and it just cuts and goes straight into the chorus. And you're like, oh man, it's not hanging in the air anymore. It's not sounding awkward anymore. Like you can do so much with that. And yeah, like I think it's really important to just bounce it off someone else. And they're like, I don't know if that was your best vocal take.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got to trust
someone honest.
Yeah, you've got to trust that person, and you can't be too serious. Like, you can't be like, oh, he didn't like it. He didn't like my vocal take. It's like, no, like, I know the best of you as a musician. I don't know if that guitar line was your best, and you listen back and you go, oh, yeah, actually.
Yeah.
You've got to have that humility to be able to work with someone else.
Yes.
I don't want a yes man in anything in life, actually, but just with anything like, yeah, that was great, that was perfect, and it's just lazy and like pay me so I can do your master and whatever, But for me, a lot of it is like actually just the technical things. Like I could sit and learn to do the mastering, which is, but I mean, I have a problem with mixing and all the plugins and compression and multi-band this and all that. It's more just like someone to do a clean job on a master and do the mastering and all, like sonically, really, more than just anything with the writing. But it's still good. Like, one of my ex-girlfriends is a musician, and we just used to go out and just listen to my tracks, like just listen to and just be like, oh man, like what are we going to do here? And she's like, oh, maybe you could put this line in here. And I'm like, yeah, I would never have thought of that. Like, that's such a good idea. And like, I ended up producing for her, and that was really fun. But like, even now, like I send it to some of my friends and they're like, I wonder what it would sound if you had like accordion on here, or if you put the synth part in there. Like, what if that vocal part was lower? And these are people who aren't musicians. And I'm like, tell me, roast this, roast me, fucking roast me. What can I do better in here? And you got the humility to be like, yeah, okay. Yeah. And also they've got to have the humility as the like producer to be, and like a lot of these tracks, it's like in the credits it's produced by Will Newman and Will Davies, because we're constantly sending notes and we're constantly I haven't met him yet, and I will meet him at some point, just with like gratitude and have a beer and stuff. But yeah, like I always want to be involved in that. I don't want to just send it off. And like if you're at some big label, it's like you have your songwriters that work with you, then it goes off to production. You might not even have much say in that, depending on what label deal you've got and stuff. And it goes out and you listen to it and you're like, well, that's not really me.
So this album, what was the process behind this? Tell me about the album. Tell me the.
Okay, so I finished the Daylight Fades to Midnight in 2021, and just immediately, like, even though I was waiting for that to come out, I'm constantly just like fucking around on the guitar and playing and just like listen to music. Like, I really like Laney, like it's really like poppy band, and like Joan and Valley is really, really one of my favorites at the moment. I have to send you some of the new album came out. It's really, really good. And so, I had those ideas, and like in early March, like 2022, it's obviously after COVID and all that, like the hangover from that, like I had a relationship that broke down, and it was something I'd been in for like, I mean, at that point it was like going on like almost 2.5 years, so that just like put me in a really bad place, and I had like a mental breakdown. And it was more like, it was that, but it was on top of like, how am I going to live the rest of my life in pain, for example? Because I have chronic pain and I deal with that every day. And so I just like I said, there's like rock bottom, and then you like move the rocks and you're like, oh, it goes deeper. So I thought I'd like reached it, and and I hadn't, and I just got into this really bad place where like I was suicidal, but it was in a really tangible and serious way. And it was like, before it was like passive, it was like, oh, well, to think about it, but it really wasn't very serious. And this time it was. And like I started just, I acted weird to her, like I completely not myself, like beggy and not wanting to be on my own. And like I started abusing drugs. Like, I got addicted to certain things, and I was just doing that all the time and just wanting to feel numb, and just the whole while like feeling extremely dissociated and just depersonalized. It didn't feel like it was real, and there was just a series of things that just bad to worse and bad to worse. And like I had never done it before, but I started self-harming as well. Like I'd never done it, I'd never understood it, I never understood why people did it, I never got that, and I started self-harming. And
what was it for you that did it? You say you don't understand why other people would do it. What was it that made you?
it just made sense. Like it's so bizarre to explain it. Like I was like, why would you cut your arm? Like what the fuck's that about? Like why would that?
Yeah.
How's that going to help? But it just made sense. Like I was in such a distorted sense of mind. Like I did it and I found that and I did that and I was like, oh, I feel a bit better now actually.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, like I feel released. Like I feel like, oh, you know, like, and there's a physical manifestation. It's like, oh, people spot that and they're like, oh, what the fuck's that? You know, like, and so I did that, and I did that pretty often, but I always felt better after doing it, you know, and
Okay.
and just that just went on, and it went on for like 6 months. So it got into like, yeah, like this time last year, and I was still in that same place, and you know, like I got to the point where like I had written a suicide note, and I was doing things like my favorite place to go in the whole world is like St. Margaret's.
Okay.
So I love going, I love
it's
going
lovely
there.
down
And I like going to the cliffs, and I would go to the cliffs every night. And it wasn't because that was how I was going to kill myself, but I was just passively suicidal the entire time. Just like, oh, well, if this happens, it happens. And, you know, taking drugs and being like, well, if you know, if that happens, then it does. And just passively just, I don't really care about my life,
Yeah.
you know, so I'm going to do X, Y, Z. And I had the way I was going to kill myself, and I had like a suicide note, and you know, I became very distant from my family, extremely distant from my sister, just, you know, extremely distant, and you know, to the point of not talking, you know, and there's bits of that remain, you know, and I'm to blame for that, and there's blame on both parts, but just, you know, just like relationship fracture, family fracture, being extremely isolated and not wanting to be around other people, and just like wanting to be high all the time and wanting to be dissociated and things. And you know, I was doing therapy this whole time, like I was doing counseling, and I don't really know what turned it around, but just this whole time I was still writing music. I was just doing it and just still doing that and getting it out that way. And that's why it was like I had this collection of songs. I was like, I definitely want to write an album next year, like if I survive. And it was kind of like, well, I've got all this content, so it's just like, you know, if I pass away, like at least I've got all these songs and things that could be released or something, like people have it. And a lot of the songs that I was writing at that time were like extremely frank and to the point about where I was at. Like I wrote a song Pills, and it's literally just about, it's like, I don't want to take pills to get out of bed, like, you know, and talking about how people just, everyone has their thing that they lean on. It might be like having a glass of wine at night or whatever it is. And the only thing that like stopped me, you know, like if I didn't have my family or a sister or a grandma or someone like that who I look after and, you know, love very much, it was like, if I'm not here, who's going to get her shopping, or like who's going to get her some Haribo and like, you know, make her laugh and stuff. And obviously my mum and dad would do that, but I'm, you know, like figuratively. So the only thing that stopped me was like, I'm in this pit of despair. I can't see it getting any better. Like, I've got chronic pain. I've got to live with it for the rest of my life. I've been abusing drugs. They've now been taken away from me. I've got nothing else, you know. So I can like end my life, and it will create an absolute shitstorm, like square root, triple cubed for everyone else, and they'll have to live for the rest of their lives knowing that I did that, and knowing that I'm not here anymore, and knowing that like I ended in misery, and like it just triples agony for everyone, people you don't even know that well. Like when you're even just when someone dies, but just something so about suicide, and it's about how that person's life ended. Oh, like it wasn't euthanasia and they slipped away, or it wasn't they were surrounded by their family. It's pure isolation. It's like, oh, they're so desperate they thought that was a good idea. Like Will was so desperate, he was like cutting his hand and being like, oh, I feel better. I'm anemic because I've lost so much blood, but I feel better now. Like, how do you get into that place? It's so distorted. And I just was like, I'd already got through all that stuff with my health before, and I was just like, I'm just going to keep marching on. I'm just going to keep doing the thing, whatever the fucking thing is. Like, I'm going to keep going, and I'm not going to stop as much as I want to. And it got to the point where it was like, because of the way I am, like mentally, I was just saying to people, I was like, I'm so annoyed that I'm going to survive all this. I was like, I'm so resentful that I'm not that person.
Yeah.
Because if I didn't have those people around me, like I wasn't living for me. I was living like for my grandma or for my parents or for those moments you see mates and you have a laugh. Like I was living for those other people, just like in the humility of like knowing and the modesty of like knowing that like if you're anyone in anyone's life, you're providing something to them. You're providing light and joy. And so I was just like, I'm just gonna keep marching on with it. And I was doing therapy and things, and I knew that like I eventually saw a psychiatrist, and it took like a year to see a psychiatrist, and she said, like you have PTSD, and I knew that anyway, like clearly, like I'd known that for a long time. It was just undiagnosed. But she said like, and you have like borderline personality disorder, and that was something that had started when I just had that like mental break, because it was very weird, like what happened last year, like that hasn't happened to me before. And the way I felt, like just like something would happen and I would feel so emotional and so bad about it, and sometimes just like completely dissociated and feeling nothing and feeling depersonalized, and self-harming is a massive part of it. Like it was very enlightening to learn that, but very much driven to that by pain, driven insane by pain, and saying to the doctors for a long time, like, I want to take XYZ to try this. I want to try this. And they said, we can't, you're too young and things. And eventually, like, for my pain, I got on morphine while my life's turned around. I'm not abusing it.
No.
I'm not abusing any of the drugs. I just decided. I was just like, what am I doing? Like, no, I'm not going to do that anymore. And I decided, and I haven't gone back on that. And yeah, like, well, it's funny, like when you don't feel in pain all the time, 6 out of 10 pain all the time on a good day, well, actually, like you've got some mental clarity to be able to start changing things, and actually life improves a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's got to where I am now. But that's where I was like, I've got this collection of songs, I want to put them out, and it's a requiem to who I used to be. That's why I had to give it that album name, because it's like, I'm fucking dead. Whoever that was is dead. Like, and it's happened. I've had many like ego deaths in my life, and people talk about that from like psychedelics and mushrooms or whatever, but I've had many through trauma and through grief. I've had many of those things, and I was just like, this really is a requiem to like who I was before. And it's like, I had a photo of me and I like made art, and it's me in a graveyard, and it's like, oh, it's all macabre. I'm like, yeah, it fucking is. I'm going to be serious about it. Like, I'm not, we gloss over all this shit and we don't go into like the reality. We were talking about like serial killers and like, that's evil. Okay, but what is it though? What is it about? And it's like, I'm not going to hide behind the fact that those things happened. It's absolutely formative to me. The entire reason I'm here today is because that happened. I live in spite of the fact that those things go on. And I, like, oh, that's really macabre. It says like rest in peace, and it's you in the graveyard. Like, oh, that's a bit dark. I'm like, yeah, it fucking is like that. But it's a beautiful, sign off. And I'm like, I didn't know if that was going to be my eulogy. Some of those songs, would they be played at my funeral if I died? I don't know. But like, they're going to be coming out, and isn't that a beautiful way to turn something really traumatic and bad into something,
into something like positive
and tangible.
Yeah.
And that's the story behind the album,
Yeah. So after going, I mean, like, you've gone through a lot in the last 5, 6, well, I mean, just you've gone through a lot.
Yeah.
Can you see, like, where would you like to see yourself musically in sort of 5-10 years? Is there like a, which is probably a question that a few years ago wouldn't have been.
I wouldn't have
I
thought
don't know,
about it.
wouldn't
In
have thought about
2018,
it.
I wouldn't have thought about it because I
Yeah.
wasn't doing it. And I know time's gone on, but because of COVID, but you know.
But is there? I mean, this is. I feel like this. I mean, I haven't heard it, but from what you've said about this album, it can almost either be a really good prestige, if that makes sense. Like this is the amalgamation of everything. This is the one. That's where I'm. Excuse me. That's where I'm kind of leaving it, or it can be a kind of that's gone.
Oh yeah,
Have a new. Let's have a
go in a
new
new
thing.
direction.
Yeah.
It's not the end of it. You know, it's just this is me going forward in a positive way, and you know, like it's people. I hate that like mental health has become a buzzword, and it's for like people use it when they've had a fucking bad day, and obviously that comes into it. But you know, like there's people out there who feel like they never could do any of this stuff, and it's just like you can. My song that I wrote, if I don't, then I won't. Leave me out, ain't no doubt I'm not going to feel it. I've got to keep my eyes wide open. It's like, if I don't release the music, I won't. If I die, then I won't. If I don't put myself out here and do a podcast, if I don't buy this studio, then it's not going to happen. Like, you have to put yourself out in the world,
Yeah.
and it's going to be uncomfortable. And you've heard that like phrase where it's like everything you want is outside your comfort zone, and it's like you just got to do it. It's like if I've survived doing those things and I have the scars to prove it, like why the fuck am I worried about any of that stuff? Like, you don't like my music, like fine, that's nothing. Who gives a shit? Like, but I'm gonna do it anyway. And in terms of like where I'd like to see myself, it would be everyone's dream is to like someone hears you and you get like a label deal or something, and that's something you do. I just feel like this story is the thing.
Yeah.
You know, it's the thing that people need to hear. And it's not, I'm not roasting this person, but like Lewis Capaldi comes out and he does, you know, like, this is what I've gone through, and it gets this massive media attention, and, you know, you're a hero, and he says, well, I'm stepping away for a while, and it's like, you know, a week later you're at Wimbledon. Which one is it though? Like,
Yeah.
is it real? I'm not doubting it, but like,
Yeah.
you come out and there's this massive poignant thing. Is it authentically about that though? Like, are you going to go away? Are you going to go out of the public spotlight, like you've said, and sort things out for you so you can be a better person and be a healthier person, you know, and the
difficult.
best version of you?
Yeah. I mean, it is difficult because it is like the music, the performance, all of it. Like, it is almost like a drug as well.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
it drags you back in. I mean, like, I spent most of my 20s trying. Well, that's probably a bit of a stretch, but at least 6-7 years trying every job I could imagine to just try and do something that gave me as much joy as music and creativity and all that sort of thing. And it just doesn't. And I know you get that kind of. There's the expectation of like starving musician, like, or like starving artist. It's always the, you know, they're doing well, but you know they're doing well for an artist. They're not
Empirically doing well.
But actually, you, having been on this side of it, you can see why people would go without to be able to fill their lives with this. I mean, it is almost like a drug. It's motorbikes.
Just like having a motorbike is, like,
yeah.
nothing hits, you know, like it's the same thing.
It's
But yeah, people go without because of it, to pursue it, because there's just like,
because of the feeling you get from it.
yeah, if you haven't done it, like, writing a song can be so much more poignant, and putting like, I'm addicted to drugs and I don't want to wake up, but maybe that's not so bad because everyone else has got something else that they do, into a song is better than me saying this on the podcast. Like, it has more feeling, and it's like, oh, that's just so balls out honest. But yeah, like I don't want anything big for me, and this is the difference. Like, is it authentic? Well, if I got like a label deal, then I'm not changing what I write. I'm not changing why I write it. If
Yeah.
I don't, in 5 years' time, I'll still be producing music.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if there's one person in Manila. Like, it's not about that, because I was saying this to a friend very recently. People who aren't into music, mate, they think that it's meritocracy. Well, the best artists are famous. It's like,
Yeah. No.
what are you talking about, man? Like, no. Like, if you've got this image, if you've got what they want to sell, you will be famous. Like, if you take some of the songs you've written and give it to a Lewis Capaldi, is it not going to be massive? Of course it is.
Yeah.
So what's it about then? So I'm not interested in those things. Like, I want to pursue this. If someone picks it up because there's worth in what I'm doing, I'm like, wow, that's such an important story. But that's the thing I want to do, is to say to anyone else, like, even if it's just at a basic level where no one listens to you, you can do it.
Yeah.
You can open a studio like you have.
Yeah.
You can actually do it. It's just scary, like, but you can. And you might sing in your bedroom and be like, I don't know if I'm ever going to have the balls to do it, or what if someone doesn't like it? Like, you don't need to be like David Bowie.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be
You don't
perfect.
have
straight
to
off
be
the
to
bat.
that level. You
Yeah.
don't. Like, whatever it's going to fulfill for you. But yeah, it's just such a craft of just emotions and having a shit day. Like, it's just all those things in one, and
Yeah.
it can make you feel sad. It can make you feel happy. That's sort of what it gives. But yeah, it's very, very addictive and very much like a drug in that way.
Yeah. So when is the album coming out again? It's
It's the
20th, is
It's
it?
the 18th of
18th,
August. Yeah,
18th of August.
yeah, and it's all on all the platforms and Spotify and stuff. And like, like if I had a bigger label, like, I'd love to have like vinyls. Like, that would just be it.
Oh,
Can you
man,
imagine?
yeah.
Can you imagine just like having a gatefold vinyl? Like,
That would be cool.
whoa, like, but I've got some posters I'm going to sign and like make available for people.
Is there like CDs and
I'd love to have CDs. I don't. It's just all digital.
We don't really have them anymore, do they?
No, it's just all digital, and I would love to. That would just be epic. Like, just imagine just like having a vinyl. Like, that would just be so
Yeah.
cool. But yeah, that's where it's going to be available for people, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. It's just, there's some cool like strip versions of things and acoustic versions of some songs on there and things.
Yeah.
A lot of it's what I've released, but I wanted to put it into a package and be like, this is the whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah, brilliant. Well, yeah, thank you very much for like being so open with everything.
Yeah.
Like, it's both refreshing and it's like quite brave, really, just being.
Yeah, it takes people back because it's like, oh, this is like the real deal. It's just honesty, like.
Yeah.
So, but it's so visceral when you go through these things. So why would I try and be like, well, when I had a tough time, like, what was it?
Yeah, yeah.
Say it.
But that's the analytical brain as well, isn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah,
That's
yeah.
like, this is why it was such a tough time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But just say it. Say what it was. Like,
Yeah.
maybe someone else is going through that right now. Maybe they're going to kill themselves tonight. Maybe they hear this and go, I'm going to buy a guitar. Like, just imagine
Yeah.
if one person did that.
Yeah.
Would that not bring you to tears if
Yeah.
someone did that? Yeah, so say it.
Yeah.
Because other people are going through that, not just a bad day, like, bad years, bad months. So you just got to say it, and, like, maybe someone will hear that.
I mean, everyone's always saying, talk to someone. Did you talk to anyone, or was it like, it was just pick up a guitar?
No, I very much like, I got to a point where I was like, I can die, or I can try and have counselling and therapy.
Yeah.
And it's a really big step to do. Like, a lot of people avoid it because, like, you're going to have to make changes. And actually, like, therapy, meditation, like, it's obviously very good as well. But therapy and meditation is like the forest in your brain of like what's true, what's not true. Well, it fucking covers it in kerosene and burns that shit down.
Yeah.
And then you can see the problems. Like, then you can see them, and they're right there, and it's visceral. And maybe it's just that sometimes me and my partner aren't happy because like we don't have sex, or like, and it's like, oh no, actually I don't want to be with this person. Like, That could
Yeah.
be something that happens to someone, or he comes home and I'm not happy with him, and it's like, actually, well, I want to have a divorce, or maybe it's just that like, oh, I've had a long day, so like I'm just gonna have a bottle of wine. Well, maybe I have a problem there, and you can't hide from that. And
Yeah.
people expose that sometimes, and they don't want to go any deeper,
Yeah.
because then you got to start changing, and that's the really difficult
Yeah.
part.
People don't like change.
But it's just like, yeah, get therapy if you can, counselling, talk to a friend, but meditation's really good.
Okay.
Meditation's great, like it, and again, like I'm not religious, but I'm very very spiritual. You don't have to be,
Yeah.
you know, and it doesn't have to be burning incense. I'm a fucking scientist, so I'm just like, I do it in a way, like there's people who are in touch with like neurology and stuff. There's all sorts of benefits. What is depression? What are these waves of things? Well, it's like I'm sitting here with you, and then we could be having lunch, and I'm like, oh, like I can't wait to get home and have like this, or I'm gonna take drugs, or I'm gonna like have sex. I want to go have sex with someone. You know, it's getting distracted, and meditation is just like, right, no, actually, I'm in the moment with you. I'm talking with Dave, so let's just be in the moment, because
Yeah.
you know that's what it's about, and it can be really useful for people, and that's very low cost and free. You know,
I've never thought of it as meditate. Well, I mean, I feel like I tried meditation to just keep myself calm quite a lot, but that kind of grounding, I just call it grounding, because I suffer with anxiety probably daily, but like I'm a bit like I've got to just either push through it or let it consume me. So I'm like, right, well, let's just get through, and then I know that on the other side it'll probably be all right anyway. I'm probably just overthinking it.
yeah.
But I find trees and
Oh man.
trees and wind
Oh yeah.
and like little noises and things. So I'm like, kind of just look at everything and realize that it's all there, it's all now. Doesn't matter what's happened before or after, and like breathing through and being like, the trees just don't give a shit.
No,
They are
just
there and they're doing what they're doing, and that's it. So I'm like, right, so I need to just be like that, root myself in, ground myself in the now, and it does help. Like it's a bit, I don't know if it's the right way to do it, but for me
that's
it works.
mindfulness. That's mindfulness. It's become like a buzzword, but that is. And guess what? One of the most meditative things you can do: play music.
Yeah.
It is in the moment.
Yeah.
You know when your eyes are closed and you're having a solo and you might be playing with a band, you feel it the most. And you're just like, I can't describe this feeling, but we're all going in with this rhythm and this energy. Like, what is this?
Yeah.
It's so enjoyable, and you're like, oh, it's 5 o'clock. Yeah, that's being in the moment, right?
Yeah.
So for me, like, I love foraging for mushrooms. It's something I started doing. I've always been an outside person, especially from cycling, but just like I started going down and walking around, and I was like, oh, there's a mushroom. That's really weird. That's really beautiful. Let's read about it. And like my scientific brain got involved, and I'm just like, well, like there's a mushroom called a stinkhorn. So it looks like a dick, and it's got brown stuff on the end that looks like feces, yeah?
Right.
So it's a mushroom, so it comes out. And Victorians and people in, like, the Middle Ages used to kick it down because they thought it was God's penis trying to take their women, okay? So the Latin name is Phallus impudicis, so stinky dick is the Latin name. And it's like the brown stuff on the end is sweet, so the flies land on it, okay?
Right.
But they land on it and eat on it. It's like nectar, and they get the spores on their feet, and then they go land on actual shit, and the spores go in there, and then another stinkhorn grows out of it. Like, how weird is that? That's going on as we speak. We can go and find one. What the fuck's that about?
Yeah.
That's so weird. I want to go find more of those weird, like, dick things. Like, what's that? And then you're involved in it, and suddenly, like, especially with mushrooms, like, I've never seen them before. Like, you could walk around and you wouldn't be seeing anything, and I can go, see that dick sticking out of the ground, and you're like, what the fuck's that? And then you see these things everywhere.
Yeah,
and that's amazing. And so it's just that idea of just like being in the woods, like you say. There's something very much about sound, like, but it's just being in the moment. And you get back and you're like, I feel fucking good now, mate. We're supposed to be outside. We're supposed to be doing these things, you know.
Yeah. Well, we have spent quite a lot of time inside.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, yeah, thank you very much for coming in.
That's right, buddy.
Yeah, I hope the album goes mental.
Thank
I can't
you.
wait to listen to it.
Thanks for having, like, give me the platform to talk about all that stuff. I just
Mate,
hopefully
thank
someone
you.
hears it, you know, and just they're like, oh, maybe I can do that, you know.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, this will go out. I'll make sure this goes out before before the album release. Probably be Monday.
Yeah.
And yeah, we'll spread the word.
Thanks, buddy.
Nice one.
Cheers.